The accusations against Christian Porter are serious, among the most serious that can be made. Therefore, they cannot be treated as any trivial matter. I'm in no position to judge, nor is anybody else in this room, Porter's innocence or guilt. That evidence is not available to us. So the question arises, what then is to be done? So what are the options? One, recourse, as it were, to the normal processes of the criminal law. Well, as we know, that's now exhausted. The police have indicated they cannot proceed with this investigation, not least because the principal witness is now deceased, and by report at her own hand, tragically. The second option, which has been canvassed, is that of a coronial inquiry. We need to reflect carefully on the limitations that would arise from a coronial inquiry should that unfold. A coronial inquiry may, for example, investigate the question of the deceased's state of mind, those factors impinging on that state of mind, whether or not there are sufficient support services surrounding that person at that time. But they would deal with the fact of her state of mind as opposed to the question of whether the underpinning facts had any substantiation or not. So that leaves us with a third possibility, which is that of an independent judicial inquiry, short in duration, quite focused in its terms of reference. I think the appropriate course of action under these circumstances is for that to occur, not least because what we are dealing with Commonwealth Government Cabinet Ministers, and not least the First Law Officer of the Commonwealth, are a set of standards which are way above those which are simply determined by the criminal code. We are dealing with positions of state in this country which are of the highest significance and therefore require people of unimpeachable integrity. Therefore, the virtue of a judicial inquiry, limited in time, of defined terms of reference, is it gives an opportunity for Mr. Porter to answer for himself and for any others who have material evidence surrounding the accusations that have been made to also provide evidence, and for such a person making the inquiry to draw their own conclusions independently. On the final point associated with that, the question will then arise as to whether Mr. Porter should remain as Attorney General during the prosecution of or the execution of such a judicial inquiry. I think if I was Mr. Porter in these circumstances, it would be wise to voluntarily step aside while that occurred. As to whether he should be compelled to do so as a separate matter, I'm very mindful of the fact that when accusations were made against Mr. Shorten, who was Leader of the Opposition, he did not stand aside from that position. But then again, that investigation was undertaken by the police, and of course the person making the allegation was still alive. And it was tested along those lines. So I don't wish to be hypocritical. I don't wish to have double standards here and say that it was fine for Shorten to remain in position, but it's not fine for Porter to do so. But if I were Christian Porter, this would probably be the best opportunity to clear your name through such a judicial inquiry at arm's length, short duration, defined terms of reference.